Let's call this meeting to order. This is the Tuesday, August 18th, 2020, Livingston Parish Ordinance Committee meeting. It is about 6:01 on time. Miss Angie, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Mack is absent. Mr. King?
Here.
Mr. Talbert?
Here.
Mr. Earlhouse?
Here. All right. Item 3, review, discussion, recommendations of ordinances. This is new business. Item A, discussion of section 125-25, drainage impact study and drainage design requirements. Mr. Talbert?
This is what we talked about earlier, about the swell ditches. Basically, what it amounts to is if you go down to 125-25-7, there was an exception to servitude that said storm sewers have a 15-foot minimum and swell ditches. But there's no definition of a swell ditch. A swell ditch theoretically be anything, shallower than 3-on-1.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? So, but by definition, a swell ditch ought to be dry, but we don't have a definition for it, and so consequently we end up with 15-foot swell ditches and no servitude. So my thought process was to eliminate and swell ditches. And so that basically you've got a 15-foot servitude on storm sewers, and swell ditches will be treated as ditches, meaning that there will always be a 15-foot servitude on the top bank, so that you can always have access to
keep it up.
keep it up.
All right.
The problem is, and the subdivisions in your district,
Yeah.
in my Gravy, I mean, mostly my Gravy Drainage District, that they've got 15-foot swell ditches, and they've got fences on both sides of them. So basically, you're ending up that if the ditch is not dry, you can't service it. So there's some concern about that. So we just thought that the recommendation just to eliminate swell ditches and basically say. Now I'm gonna tell y'all, we need to come back and revisit storm sewer, because 15-foot servitude based on depth probably isn't enough. I kind of have a little bit of knowledge about it. I'm not sure. We need to talk to some construction people and figure out that we need to make servitudes on storm sewers and sewers. Those servitudes need to be relative to the depth. We need to tie them back to the depth, so that I hate to keep throwing subdivisions on the bus, but what's the one we talked about in your district the other day? Thursday night?
Fox Glove?
Fox Glove. Fox Glove potentially has some 20-foot sewer tie-ins. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Well, if you think about, now there's some, I say the force main's at 20, and then there'll be a thing coming up, to tie in. However, if you gotta go work on a 20-foot force main, and those lots are 45 or 50 foot wide, you know what I'm talking about? You basically gonna dig up somebody's entire front yard, and stack you're basically gonna stack 3 trench boxes on top of each other to get down there to work on that thing. So we probably need to come back and address servitude width versus sewer depth. And we'll end up with more lift stations, because we'll end up with shallower pipe, but it'll be easier to work on, because if you 20-foot a 20-foot piece of pipe might have a 30-foot servitude in the front, which would be larger than the setback on the house.
Yeah.
So we probably need to get an engineer or a construction guy to help us with that, but that's a consideration we need to look at on the depth of these pipes that we're gonna have to service in the future. But I'd like to make the recommendation that we move to strike swell ditches
from
number
7.
from number 7 on 125-25.
And you think that'll cure that issue?
Basically, then everything's got to be treated as a ditch,
So-
which will require a 15-foot top of bank servitude on on one side on every ditch.
One side and the other, yeah.
Right, so
Okay.
basically,
I'll second that. Yeah.
What about,
Mr. Bubba? You can't speak from here. You sit here. If you want to go over there and ask,
I'm gonna go out there
All
and
right.
I'll do it.
all right. I mean, it's the rules.
Hold up.
It's really,
Okay,
yeah, we wanna hear.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm curious as I'm curious.
You've been seeing this stuff a lot longer than us.
Yep.
I've done a lot of it.
Okay.
Myself personally with shovels and wheelbarrows.
Come on.
You mean I gotta stand up here?
Yes, you do. Name and address.
Oh, you good? Well, I'm not here for a big arrest.
Rules are the rules, I'm sorry.
Okay. My name is R.C. Bubba Harris. And I'm here because of the swell ditches. And what if one is going through your own property, like in your yard? I know, when we were coming up in Live Oak Acres, my dad had us out there with shovels and wheelbarrows, and we was digging swell ditches. And never had any problem with the water or anything after that, so.
But this is strictly on design of construction of new subdivisions. Basically, what it amounts to is if you wanna go dig a swell ditch on your property, that's not an issue. What we're talking about now is, like, let's say back in the day, if you were trying to dig a swell ditch between two houses to improve the drainage, that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is contractors coming in where they need a ditch. They end up with they need this ditch, and then they need this 3-on-1 slope, and so they're gonna end up with a 25-foot servitude. You know, by the time you
Right.
consider a 10-foot wide ditch and a 15-foot top of bank. So what they do is come say they're gonna dig a swell ditch. They make the swell ditch 15-foot wide. You know what I'm talking about?
Right.
They go bigger, they go shallower than 3-on-1, but it's still something that cannot be maintained with a lawnmower, and they take up the whole servitude. So all we're trying to do is eliminate that option in a design thing and call everything a ditch. That way I'm not saying you can't put a swell ditch, but what we're talking about is design and stuff that is gonna be publicly maintained, those laterals and stuff, that they need to be ditches and not swell ditches, and they need to have a proper servitude.
Yeah, at your house, it wouldn't make any difference.
Yeah, if
The
you-
one
if
like
you-
in
if
your
you-
backyard,
Yeah,
that's your
That's
private,
your-
you cut it, you take care of it.
well, I wish it wasn't there.
Well, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but all we're trying to address, Bubba, is design on new subdivisions.
Right.
Because I don't care if they put a swell ditch in, they gotta have a 15-foot top of bank. So we just eliminated the variance for swell, said everything's a ditch.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if you put a shallow ditch in, it don't matter if you put a deep, 3-to-1 ditch in.
Right.
We're gonna have enough room.
We're gonna have enough room that we can maintain that grass.
Right.
Is all we're looking at, Bubba, is
Yeah.
making sure we can
Well,
maintain that grass.
I understand that. And, we never had a problem with the grass growing in the ditches.
Right.
I can promise you that, because Mr. Preston Harris saw it.
Well, and look, I'm not gonna disagree. I guess the other option would be to define how deep a swell ditch can be. You know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about? And then if we define the swell ditch and said it's gotta be, 7.5 on 1, then, so then that the widest it can be is 15 feet. But a 7.5 on 1's always gonna be dry. You know what I'm talking about? It's not gonna be hard to maintain. The problem is, we end up with something that's 15 foot wide and maybe 3 foot deep at a later point, which is better than the 3-on-1, so it qualifies as swell, but it's still not something that you can service with a lawnmower easily. So I think just eliminate the swell option
That way there's always a servitude.
that's where there's
available.
always a servitude by a lateral ditch in a subdivision.
Well, I know, when we were coming up, we had to dig swell ditches for my dad.
Oh, I hear you.
And then, that wasn't the worst part, we had to take and haul all the dirt back and put it in his yard in the low spot. So, I mean, that's just the way the old timers were back then.
That's
Oh, I
right.
hear you. Look, the shovel fits my hand. It doesn't fit good because it usually blisters it after a while, but it does fit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right,
unfortunately.
that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you,
All right,
Bubba.
brother, thank you.
All right, any comments from the audience? All right, we got a motion by Mr. Talbot, second by Mr. King, all in favor say aye.
That's cute.
Okay,
So that's on the
You come
agenda.
back
That'll
up.
be on the agenda for next.
August 27th.
Okay.
okay. Sorry.
Oh, Robert gets you sometimes, don't
Alright, so yeah, Roberts does. Item 4, review, discussion, recommendation of ordinance, and this is old business. It's old business?
he? Well, we,
Well,
Yeah,
Well,
it
with
does.
D Rose, I guess D Rose,
Yeah.
we talked about it so
it-
much.
Review,
I don't-
discuss procedure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for Department of Public Works to address type D roads. Okay, I'm gonna speak on this a little bit.
all right, yeah, you start.
I guess we all know what the type D roads were, and I believe the intent of the type D roads being, added in was to take in roads that will never meet the A, B, or C criteria to be overlaid. But there are residents and people who live on roads that can, until they meet the A, B, or C, which would be how wide it is, if there's a turnaround at the end, and they can never, very little chance of ever making the A, B, or C category in order to be brought into the program, even just brought in to be maintained. So, and I'm gonna speak, from the way I personally feel about what the intent behind it was, and y'all differ on this. One was, there are people who have been paying into the program, and because, they might have a gravel road that needs to be graded, just go through there and grade the road, just put a tractor down on it, grade it over, and then pick up so it'll be passable. But they couldn't even get that simple service from the parish because they couldn't be brought into the parish system. Or just safety reasons, they could have a road that's got such bad potholes that it was just it was unsafe. You could go through there and, hit a pothole or go off, or cause you to have a flat or maybe lose control. I don't have any of this situation in mind, but I could see a situation where it would occur. So, anyway, we wanted to have a system in place or an avenue. So we created the Type D roads. Type D means that, hey, you can never be overlaid. And we are going to go in, we will grade your road if it needs be. If it's a gravel road and it needs to be graded, we can do that. We have a criteria for it too. I think it's like 5 houses minimum per
5 businesses.
5 businesses,
5
residences, and
addresses.
to go in, they grade the road. If the road is paved, but it was paved, but it doesn't meet the other criteria, with the servitude, there's
Many
a
different
turnaround at the
things,
end,
yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
things that we could bring this road in under the idea that we can, we have, and we're being told there's an abundance of riprap and materials to where we just have there, we can go and fill a pothole and minimal expense, really none because we got it, and just man hours, go out there, fill those in, make it safe for the people, the people who live on the road. Or if a road is paved under certain conditions, they can go in and it's really bad, like to the point where you can't, patching it will just be problematic. You can go in and we can just grade up that road and make it into I don't want to say gravel, but,
Yeah.
make it into a gravel road
Yeah.
to where it can be graded and maintained from that point on. Personally, I would rather live on a gravel road that's smooth than a paved one that's just covered with potholes, And look, we also gave the people on that road an option to not do it. It's not like we're going to go out there and grab them all. You actually have to make a request to become a Type D road. But it gives people an option to where, you can get something back for what you've put in. and signage, but, well, I don't think the signage was part of it. That was my personal intention when I voted for it here and at the council level. Nothing beyond that point. But Mr. Sam, the head of DPW, said, well, he needs more clarification. You know, how far do I go? Do I touch do we clean the ditches? Do we, you know, some of them have bad foundations, you know, do we go in there and it's my opinion that this is grade, patch potholes, and if necessary, bust it up and make it into a gravel road if it's a really, really bad or poorly paved road at some point. Now, I will let you gentlemen explain how
Well,
you
it's
feel.
no different than what we talked about. It's exactly what we said. If it's got big potholes, washouts, they can come in, grade the road, put a little riprap in it to make it where it doesn't tear your vehicles up, doesn't hold water all the time, making it worse. No drainage improvements, you cannot fix the drainage. That's all private, they gotta do that themselves. I think that list, that what you said is all that he needs to do. He just wanted something set forth so that whenever we take a DN, he'll know what he can do, what he should do. And I think it's pretty simple, you know?
Well, I think the only thing I think that we should do that we hadn't talked about is that there are roads the road that we're talking about doing for you,
Yes,
it's an asphalt road.
yes.
It was an asphalt road at one
Yes.
point in time. It is mostly gravel now, but it's still asphalt. I'm not sure we're not in a better situation there to go run and turn that road from an asphalt road into a gravel road.
I absolutely.
So I think that basically, you know, we can, you know, I think Sam needs to determine whether we, you know, put crushed stone or riprap or run the pothole patcher to fix a hole in a road. You know what I'm talking about?
Mhm.
The goal is to be able to maintain these roads, which is easily done if they're gravel.
Yep.
So I think that we need to give him the opportunity that if a road is in such disrepair, if an asphalt or concrete road is in such disrepair, that it would be more cost effective to, you know, take that road and grind it up or break it up or whatever and turn it into a gravel road. Then we need to give him that option. But
Well-
typically, I think all we're trying to do is maintain roads for safety. But it might be in our best interest, given the situation of a road, that he has the ability to go turn an asphalt road back into a gravel road. It'll be more cost effective in the long run. to maintain.
Absolutely.
So I think we need to let him make that determination that, you know, what we're asking you to do is patch potholes.
Yep.
However, you have the expertise that you determine, do I need to turn this concrete road into gravel road? Do I need to turn this asphalt road into gravel road? Or I need to continue to patch? Because ultimately, you and I know what happens right now. If they've got a road, if they put a culvert down, they dig a asphalt road up, they put the culvert down, they fill it with 610 limestone, letting it compact, then they coming back, digging it out and asphalt. Ultimately, some of that's gotta be done on some of these big potholes.
Mhm.
You know, you gotta put the riprap in there,
They
you
did
gotta
lunch
put,
on Linder.
or you gotta, you know, you
Yeah.
do them like that. Then you come back after they've settled and you can run the pothole patcher on it, you know, and get you some kind of seal on the top of it, so it'll quit taking on water. But some of these roads are gonna be in such disrepair that it would be cheaper to go, you know, run the soil cement machine on them and basically chop them
just-
up and then roll them up and treat them like a gravel road. I think that, you know, somehow we need to come up with some wording along those lines that basically give him the opportunity.
Well, I believe the ordinance as it is frames out what we want. We just I think we need to give specific
Right there.
direction of,
Yeah, just-
not so much what you can do, what you can't.
Right.
And then we give
Have
the
a
department head, and what you're saying, the
Mhm.
ability to say, I can say whether we need to do this or this, but only within the scope of what
Yeah,
what we're laying out.
we're not gonna let you overlay the road.
No.
You can patch, repair, maintain.
Yeah,
But you get to determine, is it more cost effective to turn that road into a gravel road and then grade it, or is it more cost effective to continue to patch the potholes?
yes.
I mean, after a while, common sense could tell me that, look, I keep throwing money in this hole, it keeps eating it. I'd be better off to grind it up and grade it.
Mhm.
But, you know, they know that right off the bat, they can tell, so they're the experts, they need to make that determination.
Well, and I guess we need, I think that I think we need to put clarity into what can't be done.
Well,
You know,
and
because some comments were made at the last meeting, and it shook me, because I'm like, no,
that wasn't
just
the
because
intent.
you're a Class D road, you're not one step closer to being a Class C road.
Right.
You are not. A Class
Well-
D is a whole other subsection that, you might be a Class B road and be closer to being a Class A road, but a Class D road is not.
Well, I mean, that's
You
why
know,
we
Miss-
put it
Miss
down
Angie,
to
I
5D substantial.
You kind of know what we don't want to do. Why don't you put together for the next committee meeting, which will be, you or Lauren, whoever's here, 2 Tuesdays from next Tuesday, which will be before the next council meeting.
Yes, we'd be able to hammer it out, tweak it.
A resolution of direction for the Department of Public
Yes.
Works on what we intend on Class D roads, and then we can approve that as a council.
Well, that's like the road that John tried to take in off Old River Road back
Yeah.
2 or 3 years ago.
Mhm.
Part of it's concrete, some of it's asphalt, some of it's gravel.
Well, he can
Well-
determine to do some part of it.
That's
the other.
right.
I mean,
If the concrete's good, got a little hole, patch that one little hole. The
Yeah.
asphalt is beyond, take it out, make that gravel. The people be much better with that gravel
But,
instead of this.
but what I'm saying,
But
we
then
need to let
DPW.
the Director of Public Works determine
Right.
what's most cost effective.
I
So,
agree.
Yes.
so I think the
Yeah,
thing to
that's-
do is come up with some wording, in a resolution form for us to address next Tuesday night, be on the agenda next Thursday, we'll make a recommendation.
But he also inquired about like signage. Do we put,
I think that Scooter hit a good point, and maybe you can ask Chris, since these are private roads, do we have the ability to post speed limit signs? I have a feeling we're not gonna be able to. I think basically all we're gonna be able to do is if there's a stop sign at the end, which, because you're going on a
Yep.
parish or state highway, and then a name, a red.
I think we're doing that
a red
already on
911,
every
which
road,
we're
so-
already doing.
Yeah,
So I don't know that we have the ability,
fair enough.
because it's a private road, to put anything, but we need to ask Mr. Moody. Come on, Bubba, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the thing we need to ask. If it's a private road, even though we're maintaining it, do we have the ability to set the speed limit? And then if we do set the speed limit, does the sheriff have the ability to enforce it? Since technically the road's not owned by any public entity, it's a private road, so private,
it's just
it's
a
still,
public
it's
road, but
private.
it's a public road at the time.
It's private ownership, public access.
Right.
I mean, think about it. The sheriff can't write you a speeding ticket in a parking lot. Can he?
I used to be told no, and then somebody said yes.
But
How
he
do you
could
do
probably write you a reckless.
Reckless
opt-out,
operation, but it's, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that
I understand what you're saying.
I don't, there's no need for us to waste money putting speed limit signs up if nobody's gonna enforce it.
Right, I
So
understand.
I think that's a
Yeah.
Chris Moody question to figure out
Yeah.
whether we're,
Mr. Harris?
That's one thing I wanted to bring up, what Mr. Chris brought up at our last meeting, about if, after we worked a private road so long, does it automatically become a parish road and into the parish system?
Not as a
You go
class.
3 years with it?
Well-
after 3 years, it becomes public. There's a difference between in the parish maintenance system and parish owned versus public. All it says is that, what state law says is that if a parish maintains a private road for 3 years, then that road is now public, meaning that you can't gate it. You know what I'm talking about? It is now a public road. So, but a road that the public has access to versus being a road maintained by the parish do not mean they're the same thing. So I guess we can ask Chris to clarify that a public access
I think
road,
he did already.
well, I know, but I think make sure that what I'm thinking is right. Public access road is,
It's still a private road.
it's still a private, it's still not a parish, whatever.
It's not parish owned, because every other road in the parish we own the mineral rights, everything under that road.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just remember what Mr. Chris had asked,
yeah.
you know, if we're gonna maintain it for 3 years and then it would become a parish road.
I think we had a discussion, Bubba, about it when we weren't even looking at D. We were looking at some other roads that they had been maintaining for 3 years, and we said, did this become a parish road? And he said, no, it does not. It becomes a public road that they can't block off, they can't gate, they can't do anything to. But that it was a distinct difference between the two.
So we can ask
Well, I
about
didn't
that too.
know.
Yeah, we
can
can, I mean,
include-
hurts nothing to get another clarification, make sure we get it right.
Yeah, I didn't want us to do something, then everybody and their brothers gonna be coming in here, well, y'all maintain my road for 3 years, we want it in the parish system and all this kind of stuff, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but even under the criteria,
It was still.
okay, so
have a lot to meet.
do you have a wide enough service, you know, is it wide enough? No, do you have the turnaround, and all those criteria that keeps you from getting into the maintenance system
Right.
will still not allow that. But yeah, I agree, there needs to be clarification on that. Got anything else?
I think that there are some roads in the parish that have been being maintained for 50 years that are not in the parish road system, and this deed, over time, if people come and ask for that, then they can be in it just to maintain, so that they'll know this is on here, we have to hit it,
Yep.
so,
Y'all have anything? For elements?
come
All
on.
right, well, we're just gonna move that to the,
Yeah, to the next meeting.
change?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, we got that discussion, go ahead,
All
5.
right, item 5, this is other business. Review, discuss procedure for planning commission to address waivers.
So if you remember, Crotwell came and spoke to us at the meeting and asked to have his thing go to planning. We've had a couple people come to us and want us to tell them whether we would approve or not approve their waiver before they go to planning, you know, for some of their stuff. I'm just wondering, and we talked about like sending some stuff, we talked about sending Crotwell to planning, and what was the other guy that came here that we fixed his road thing and we wouldn't address the other thing? The guy that, you was showing me all the questions
Yeah,
we had.
because he wasn't on the agenda.
Yeah, he wasn't on the agenda, right.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, you know, basically, planning is supposed to tell us where something conforms or doesn't conform to the ordinance. Well, if they're asking for a waiver, we automatically know they're non-conforming to the ordinance. What I'm wondering is some of these waivers, not the trailer and the subdivision, because once we do one of those, we don't have to do them again. And not the culvert drainage thing, because I think every councilman needs to have some input in that, because you know how your drainage situations are in your district. But all these other waivers, you know, multiple lots on servitudes, subdividing lots and subdivisions, all the different waivers that we get, I'm wondering if we wouldn't be better served with our time is to send them to planning, meaning that if I'm looking for a waiver, let's say I'm looking to put lot number 5 on a private servitude when I'm only due 4, you know, then I know it's non-conforming. Do we really want to debate that at the council level, or would we be better off to send it to planning and let the planning department make a recommendation to their committee? You know, is it conforming? You know, we know it doesn't conform to ordinance. Is it more conform to what's going on? The number of lots on servitude, I don't even know how they make that recommendation, because there really is no, I mean, if you exceed, you exceed. But let's take, for example, a subdivision in my in my district that, you know, somebody wants to cut a lot in half. And if it goes, typically it would come to us and we would debate it, you know what I'm talking about? I'm wondering if it went to planning and the planning department did the research and went to them and said, that is the first lot in that subdivision that's gonna be cut in half.
So our recommendation.
Our
is this.
recommendations, you know, that you start a bad precedent, or, you know, they come to them and say, 75% of the lots in that subdivision have been cut in half. You know, and another 40% have been cut in, you know, quarters or thirds or whatever. And so what this person is requesting is technically not conforming to the ordinance, but it is conforming to what's been going on in that neighborhood, you know, throughout time. Now, then planning could then make the planning committee could make a recommendation. You know, if the council chose to grant that waiver, then it would not be outside the scope of what has been going on in that area, or they could say, we don't recommend the waiver. You know, and then we still would have the final say. But some of the work would have already been done,
Yeah.
you know, and
Well,
then
I'm kind of on this, and I don't mean to cut you off.
okay.
The debate's still gonna happen here anyway. So I think maybe, and just hear me out on this, maybe
Okay.
the approach is, don't figure out what doesn't go to planning, make a list of what does. And I know that.
Instead of saying, yeah, everything's
You
gonna
know,
go plan for these two
instead of
things.
this and this, like, you know, like you said, the I don't know, trailer in a subdivision, you know, or, you know, trailer in a named subdivision.
Yeah,
We can handle that, so that doesn't need to go, so we just make a list of things that we assume we'll do. We're gonna keep everything except this, and this.
But,
You
and
know.
I think basically what we're really looking at, and tell me if I'm wrong, I think that now that we create this ordinance, it says you can't go busting up a lot in subdivision. You know what I'm talking about? We've, you know, there is historically been subdivisions, you know, we did it in an effort to preserve the integrity of what the subdivision was. But once the subdivisions had it done 50% of the time, are we really preserving the integrity of the subdivision, or are we hindering, you know, somebody that owns a piece of land in it? So really, that is probably the thing that needs to go to planning.
Well, they've seen it so many times.
You know what I'm
and stuff,
saying?
too.
And then basically planning could say, we think that lot getting cut in half is conforming to what's been going on in the neighborhood. Or they can say, cutting that lot in half is not what's been going on. And then we at the council would still have the final say. Here's the thing, if planning tells an individual, you getting your lot cut in half is not conforming, they're probably not coming to see us.
Yeah, they're probably just gonna change their mind.
You know what I'm saying?
Understood.
So basically what we're probably gonna see 90% of the time is planning saying, we feel like this is conforming to what's been going on. And then the council can either say, we agree with you, or, yeah, but I know what's been going on, but we wanna draw the line here. You know, and I mean, I guess it kind of does the legwork for us and does some of the research for us on the front end. And then the planning department, who are theoretically the professionals within the parish, make the recommendation to the board. This is what we think ought to happen. You know, they can show them the statistics. You know, half the lot's been cut in half. 75% have been cut in half. One other one's been cut in half.
Yeah.
You know, and then it's not arbitrary. The decision has been made based on what they feel, you know, is what's good for the neighborhood. Look, I still think, I mean, and I think we'll see more of this if we ever get zoning or when we get zoning. But you see parishes that have zoning, and I might have a piece of property that conforms to what the zoning laws say, but might not necessarily conform to what the neighborhood wants or the way the neighborhood's moving. And so I think conversely, we have ordinances that protect the whole, yet restrict people in particular areas because we're saying, nope, you can't do it, because we have an ordinance that says, when in essence, the whole area is moving that direction, and it makes perfectly good sense. And I just think that it gives the councilman, I know it would give me pause to think. I mean, we talked about the Cromwell situation tonight, and I told him, if we vote now, you're not gonna like the way I vote. If you come back with a recommendation from planning that says, you know, we feel like based on the evaluation of this subdivision, maybe this thing's a good thing, then I might could vote your way. But without a recommendation from some professional that says, this possibly is the way the subdivision is moving, then I think we're gonna say no more often than we say yes. So I'm just wondering, given that, and I guess what I'm saying, given that other parishes that have zoning actually do it, they're doing it opposite than what we're talking about. They're saying you conform, but it's not really the way the neighborhood's moving, so we're not gonna allow that type of development. What we're saying is that you don't conform to the rules, but because we don't have zoning, it's moving that direction. Maybe it's something we need to consider. I mean, does that make any, does it?
I understand what you're saying, and I guess I could see what you're saying on any other ordinance but that one. Because, in my opinion, if you lay out a neighborhood and it's this big, and let's say 50% of those lots since the neighborhood was laid out have been subdivided, in my opinion, the day it went into effect,
That's the line.
that's the line.
Well-
And if you bought in that neighborhood to chop up your lot, even though it's moving that way, in my opinion, it's moving in a bad way.
Well, okay, so let's look at it from a trailer. Let's look at it from the trailer. No trailers in subdivision designed for stick-built houses. I mean, if you think about what we're doing, what we say is, oh, there's 4 trailers down this street. Now, the subdivision was built for stick-built houses, but because there are 4 trailers on there already, we're gonna allow the 5th trailer. I mean, it's the same basic principle. We're saying that because the subdivision is moving a particular direction, we're gonna grant that trailer waiver and continue to let it move in the direction it's been moving.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's different but similar. And so, all I'm saying is that we have set a precedent in the way we've dealt with certain things, that we allow things to happen outside the ordinance by granting waivers. I'm just wondering, in this particular situation, if we aren't better off having a professional make a recommendation to us. We can take it up for discussion more. I don't think,
Yeah.
this is not something that requires an ordinance. This is something that
Some
requires,
guidance.
this is something that would require a resolution of guidance to the planning commission.
Okay, somebody got, like Mr. Crockwell, for instance, he would have gone to planning and showed him what he wanted to do, right? To divide a lot. They used to just sign off on that, right?
Well, no, what happens, well, it used to, before we had the ordinance, they would have signed off on it.
Yep,
Okay, now because it's non-conforming to the ordinance,
they said it does.
it comes straight to us for a waiver. What we would recommend, what I would like to see us recommend is create guidance to go to planning, so that if that thing came to planning, if a re-subdivision of property came that was non-conforming, then it would go to planning with recommendation from the planning department, meaning,
Yeah, they're gonna have the engineers
And
there,
look,
they're gonna
and
have
look,
Natalie there,
that
they're gonna have all
happens.
these people.
I understand what you're saying, and I don't have a problem. I would like to talk about it more.
well,
But that happens now anyway. Stuff, and I'll tell you an example. Somebody goes to planning with something, they don't realize that it doesn't meet the ordinance. Planning looks at it and goes, we don't really have a problem with it, but you're gonna need a waiver. So we'll vote to, I think you've seen this, we'll say, we vote in order to maybe grant you this waiver. We will recommend that the council grants a waiver. And that happens. I've seen that happen. It's the same thing. You just want to give them that permission ahead of time.
I just would like to see, when something, that if there's a non-conforming re-subdivision of property, that it goes to planning, and planning, when they send it to us, says, we understand this doesn't conform to the ordinance, but it conforms to what's going on in that neighborhood, area.
Yes, from that little bitty map we looking at.
You know, or
But we can talk
they,
about it.
or they say, it's non-conforming to the ordinance, and it's non-conforming to what's going on.
Well,
And then it's pretty cut and dry. If I'm looking at that sheet, you know, our agenda, and I see item A is a non-conforming waiver that the planning commission recommends, then I can read what their recommendation is and make a determination based it, that if I support this, I'm at least supporting what's been happening. And if they send me another one, the second one says it doesn't conform, and it doesn't conform to what's going on, and there's no way that we recommend that, then it's much easier to say, nope, I'm not in favor of that, you know.
We're not just guessing off the night
well,
of.
I understand, and I know we keep using the same ordinance.
Yeah.
Because there's probably other cases.
Oh, there's plenty of.
You know, well, every ordinance,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
But, you know, I know that neighborhoods, like the neighborhood that I live in, I've lived there 50 years. And luckily, I've had the oversight and the protection of the city itself.
Right.
Because, you know, believe me, our HOA went out the door probably before I was even born.
Sure.
Right.
The city has come in and said, no, here's the preliminary plat, you know, and I still have, I mean, it's like on kind of waxy paper, you know, it's,
The shiny.
yeah, it is, and they just don't allow it to happen. You know, maybe we could put something in where it says, hey, if your subdivision / neighborhood, which is a whole other
Right.
topic for discussion, if it was made after this day, like any neighborhood being built today,
Well, we've been curing all
I
that,
don't
Tracy.
ever-
We're making it,
if it's 40 years from
Right.
now, I don't ever want to see it
It's cut up.
cut up.
Well,
Or
And a lot of them today, you can't cut it up
And I-
anymore than it's, you
And
know,
I think.
because of the for no other reason, the drainage.
Well,
You know?
and I think, Tracy, if we implemented that recommendation to planning, there's no way that any of these new subdivisions that have been built could ever
No, we
conform,
fixed it.
because
Yeah.
they would always be the first one.
Yep.
I think what we're looking at is, it's always gonna be related to older subdivisions. And it's always gonna be, do they conform? And look, I don't know what the percentage is. You know, I don't know, I mean, like you talked about Suburban Acres. Suburban Acres had 2 lots cut. You know what I'm talking about? And since then,
They had none.
they've had none, partially because
Yeah.
we introduced the ordinance and changed it. So, you know, I can see where that thing would, when it went there, they said that there were 2 lots done and nothing's been done since then, it's not conforming to the way the subdivision's moving, we recommend no. But there are other subdivisions that have been cut and cut and cut, and it almost seems arbitrary and capricious to just tell a guy, no, because you're doing it after this date,
You guys got the last lot.
you know,
No,
because
you
you're
can't do
doing,
yours.
because you're doing it after this date,
I know.
you don't get to do it anymore when everybody else has done it. I just think we ought to give people the opportunity to plead their case and have some experts make a recommendation
Well, I mean,
one way or the other.
you
And
could,
it still comes before the council and we still get the final vote.
okay. But keep this in mind too. You could put in something along the lines, if you own the property now, if someone comes in and buys it,
Yeah.
they come in and they buy it
Knowing that's
under
what
the
they gonna
intention
do.
to do that.
Yeah.
And I don't care if there's, maybe I shouldn't say I don't care. If there are 50 lots originally in there and 45 of them have been cut up, and the last 5 are there, I don't want someone to say, well, I'm gonna go in and buy those last 5 lots or buy one of those lots and cut it up. And just because the other 45 have been, and I understand, if you've owned that property for 50 years, okay. I mean,
I hear you.
you've done 45 times, but
We've seen some new ones, Gary, in our area.
Well,
Well, I
we
just
saw,
say,
we saw some,
on that
we
one-
saw some of those, we saw before we understood what the rules were, we saw some guys take a lot, cut it up into 3 because nobody's ever got a post sign. And next thing you know, 6 months later, when they're building houses, you're like, what the hell happened? This was one lot. Well,
Yeah.
that's why some of these ordinances.
I can tell
exist.
you that the
But I'm
way
just
the
gonna-
ordinance is written now, they're always gonna get a no from me. Unless and I think this is an adjustment we need to make. And when we've talked about this, every piece of property in the parish is a subdivision.
Right.
It's been subdivided. That by definition, it's a subdivision,
Yeah.
but it's not a neighborhood.
Right.
Now, I don't think there's a legal definition for neighborhood, but you know the difference. 3 Lakes is a neighborhood.
Yeah.
Fox Level is gonna be a neighborhood. Those are neighborhoods. But if there was a piece of land, and I use this as an example a lot, and it's on Walker South, and it's 200 feet deep, but it was 12 or 1,500 feet long, running the length of Walker South, and someone comes in and they subdivide that lot into, let's say, 4 lots
12.
or 12.
Yeah.
When you're driving down the road, we drive past it. I'm gonna go, hey, do you see that subdivision back? You see that subdivision back there? Well, no. Did you see that neighborhood? Well, there wasn't no neighborhood back there. Yeah, I know,
It's
but,
row house.
but that was a subdivision.
Yep.
Right.
So if you have 10 acres and they put 5 houses on those, do the easy math, 5 2-acre lots, and then the guy on the end decides, or whoever, it says, look, I want to put this down the middle, make 2 1-acre lots and put a house there. I don't really have a problem with that.
It's not
Unfortunately, that falls within because at some point there was, and I don't know the history of the rules, but evidently there was a way to say, if we name our little piece of land here, Fallen Oaks, or make up some name, they managed to probably skirt something to do so.
Well, I
You
think
see,
they
there's a
made
lot of
them
them that have
like-
names that you don't even know is a subdivision.
That's right.
You just see 5 houses as you drive by. So I mean, I wouldn't have a problem making a change to that ordinance to say,
Well-
hey, look, if all the driveways hit a state highway, then
Our parish.
our parish road.
I guess my deal is that the one thing I've learned in 4.5 years,
Yes.
there is no perfect ordinance. You cannot write a perfect ordinance that addresses
Yeah.
every issue. So you've got to have some, as Sam always said,
Wiggle
boys,
room.
y'all got to leave y'all a little wiggle room.
Well, and you said
and I
something-
always feel that waivers are wiggle room. And so when we catch such grief over giving waivers, I wonder, that's why I'm wondering about,
Well, look.
I'm wondering if every time there's a subdivision of property that's non-conforming, that it goes to planning and let planning make some recommendation to us, you can still vote no on every one of them son of a guns that come down the pipe. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
And then I have the ability to say, the professional said it's conforming to what's going on. I feel a little differently about that thing than you do. I
understand what you're saying.
When we do our zoning deal, in the future, when we have a zoning planning and zoning commission in
Right.
place, those waivers wouldn't need to come here.
No, because
They would
basically,
decide.
basically, there,
Yeah.
you don't need a waiver, because you're gonna say that, you know,
It fits
this
with
is,
the zoning.
this is rural, and these are the ways you subdivide rural property.
Yeah.
And this is a,
And
this is
if
a
somebody doesn't agree
high
with
density
it,
area, and
in the
you can do
meantime-
this.
in the meantime,
we
in the meantime, I think that he's right. I think
I-
we should send those three.
And I don't disagree.
You
We're
want-
gonna-
Let's talk about some more.
Yeah, no, I
But
ain't.
you said something early on, not tonight, but just early on, since we've been doing this thing together for the last 5 years.
And you said that, you know, when I hit the door here, just like you, I said, I'm never giving away.
Oh, day one.
I'm never giving away. That is the most
Most
foolish
idiotic thing we ever
statement.
said.
Because you have this thing in your mind that the laws,
They're
there's a
cut and
one
dry.
size fits all and it's perfect.
I,
And it's just not true.
I
Now, and you can't change, you cannot change the ordinance every time you see something that fits, like, you know, the number of houses on a servitude. You know, what was the meaning behind that? Well, they didn't want all these houses jammed up, you know, or on the road front right there. But, you know, okay, so that's great. What if those houses have 5-acre lots? I mean, it doesn't look very cluttered when you got, you know,
no, but
7 houses that you got, you know, you got 35
I
acres
agree.
there, and you
Well,
only got 7 houses.
And I think, but then we see that, you know, every time there's a private servitude, doesn't matter if there's 3 houses on it or 15 houses, at some point in time, somebody wants the parish to come out there and fix their darn road.
Yep.
And I mean, that,
Well, you're right.
And that's where we see the rub on some of this stuff.
Well,
And that's why I put a date on that road D, because I knew that somebody would be developing. They go, now we're gonna develop some for the
Oh, yeah.
private road that's coming in.
Well,
No.
all I remember is ideologically when I came in here, I thought the world's black and white, and
No.
hell, I remember I probably been in office a month and a half, and this lady comes to me. This lady, she's old. She's like Bubba's age. No, no, but she comes to me, and she and her husband own a home, and with that home has some acreage.
Yep.
And it faces this road that is private, but it was family land. Everybody built houses on, and they were of the age that they wanted to continue to live in their home, but they couldn't take care of that additional 4 acres or 5 acres or whatever it was. But the way our laws were written, she couldn't even cut it out and sell it. You know, she was stuck with it. And I'm like, man, this doesn't, in this particular instance, this didn't make sense to me.
Yep.
And so I guess the one thing that's happened in the 4.5 years is what was very black and white has become very gray when people come and talk to you about their personal struggles and their concerns and what they need.
Yep.
And so that's why
So you,
I would like for those individuals who have some struggle, who need to do something, go to planning, present their case, and let the professionals make a recommendation to us that it is or isn't conforming to what's going on in the area.
Well,
To
and
heck
you
to heck
also
with
got-
the ordinance. And then those of us who believe that the ordinance is good no matter the situation can vote the way they want to vote, and those of us who believe that the ordinance is good for the most part, but there are exceptions, can then say, the professional said this is an exception. And that's all I'm looking for. Maybe it's a scapegoat on my part. Maybe it's I want somebody to tell me it's okay to vote for this waiver. You know what I'm saying? But I think that it would give people a voice to professionals to make their case and feel like they get a better evaluation that's not political. And then when it comes to us, we can make the determination we agree or
It
don't
becomes
agree.
you,
as
if you
well.
wanna make it political, then you can.
if someone
I know
comes
my
to you
area,
and they
I'm
want a
over
waiver,
it.
and they want a waiver, you have to weigh one of 2 things. Should I change the ordinance, or is the ordinance overall sound, and should I grant the waiver and save the ordinance?
In lieu of changing that
I think
ordinance.
And sometimes you go, just with the subdividing, I said no. here's some honesty moment from me. When they said somebody were coming in, there was subdividing that property in suburban acres, I was like, you can't do that. You can't do that. And they're like, well, they're doing it. So I thought it was already law. And I know that's, and then when they said, well, it's not, I was like, how has that not been changed? That was one of those things. I said, we're going to change that immediately.
Well, I'll just give you an example. The deal with Ms. Odd after I've been in office a month and a half, 2 months, whatever. I felt that the ordinance overall is a good ordinance. I think as it applied to their particular situation, it didn't work. But for the most part, I think it was overall. It's not like they went out and bought this house with 5 acres knowing they couldn't maintain it. They grew to the point that they couldn't maintain it.
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about?
And it was
kind of like. I mean, my mother used to work in the yard all the time, and now somebody does most of the hard work, and she goes out there and piddles with her flowers. You know, that's just how
Yeah.
things progress. And so, I think that the ordinance that we've written that says you can't subdivide the lot in a subdivision once a plat's been signed, I think for the most part is a good ordinance. I think there are exceptions to the rule. What I would like, instead of me in my mind trying to figure out is that exception to the rule, I would like a professional to make a recommendation on that exception.
Well,
we'll talk about that
I'm
too.
just saying, I in my heart want to go, there are no exceptions, but I know if I say that,
There's gonna be
there's
one
gonna
next
be
week.
one.
Well,
I know.
You know,
So
why do
it's
you
like
think
that thing you
remember
have at your
something so
house you
vividly?
hold on to for 10 years,
Yeah.
and you throw it away and you need it the next day. That's what I
same
said. So,
thing.
I mean, what you got, Mr. Bubba?
I don't know where my legs are,
Well, I'm sorry.
Live Oak Acres. I've been there forever. My dad worked for Pump Smith, C.E. Smith, when the back part of that was developed, and there was no ordinances back then. And I feel this ordinance that we have passed is good because from that point forward, you're not gonna be able to do the things that they used to do.
And on that particular ordinance, I'm in agreement with you. But you know,
And
look,
Bubba-
it's okay, I believe, if it goes, ultimately if it goes to planning. I mean, I have a great deal of respect for my planning appointment,
Me too.
and if for some reason he votes yes, I'm still gonna have the opportunity to go no.
Yeah.
But I do have a great deal of respect for him.
But you'll know what they said.
But I'll know what they say, so.
That's
That's
right.
the reason I voted for this ordinance was
You ready to go?
to help these developments, you know.
Right. And Bubba, I don't necessarily disagree with you. I just think that there are times that there are exceptions, and I would like in the future, if I'm gonna make a vote, I'd like for some professional to tell me that exception makes sense instead of me having somebody tug at my heartstrings. I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, it's hard to believe. Sometimes when people come give me their sob story, I'm
Get
pretty
soft.
soft-hearted.
We
So
do.
You go all Shane Mack on him?
I do.
Oh,
I don't cry, but I mean, my wife gets aggravated because somebody come tell me why they need $20. I'm usually giving them $20, and she's like, "You never get your money back."
It
So
doesn't
I would like, for me, from my point of view, I would rather somebody tell me, yeah, it works, or no, it doesn't, than me to visit with an individual.
And then if you need to override it, you'll try and
We'll
get
talk-
them
we'll talk
override
about
it.
it some
Yeah,
more.
okay.
Hey,
Y'all guys want to talk about this at all? Look, he's already fallen asleep. He ran out on us the other night.
Look, I served 9 years on the East Baton Rouge Parish Planning and Zoning Commission. Nothing you can talk about.
I
Still
mean,
goes on.
I
They
mean,
got rules, this thick.
Yeah.
Same stuff.
Can
but I
you-
mean,
can you
doesn't
write a perfect
it make
ordinance?
sense? I mean, what I'm
He
saying
knows.
is pretty much true about what
Yeah,
goes
he knows
on,
perfect
right?
ordinance.
Yeah.
Hey, it's
You
7
think-
o'clock. I make a motion that we adjourn.
Yes, we're-
What if I
Okay.
don't second it? He can't.
Well, that's a fact.
We just said it. I'll second it.
You gonna second or I'm gonna leave? We ain't have a quorum.
Actually, we don't even have to vote to put it on the next one.
No.
So, yeah. All right, motion to adjourn.
Motion, seconded, all in favor, aye.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Hey, you want?
Good seeing y'all. Next Tuesday, same